Hello, everyone. On the show with me today is John Ghiorso, and he is the founder and CEO of Orca Pacific, a Seattle-based agency focused exclusively on helping brands to sell on Amazon. John founded Orca over 10 years ago and now manages over 100 mid to large size brands in a variety of product categories. He uses his in-depth understanding of Amazon to help brands maximize their potential on the platform. John, thank you very much for being on the show. Are you ready to share some bright ideas with the audience?
Yep, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So what does your company do? You manage accounts for Amazon. Break it down for us. What does that mean?
Yeah, for sure. So we consider ourselves a full service agency with an exclusive focus on Amazon. So what that means for us is we basically aim to curate capabilities in every facet of the Amazon platform. So front end, so marketing, advertising, content, SEO, merchandising, back end, operation support. We deal with both 1P and 3P, so things like chargebacks, direct import, helping facilitate FBA, really you name it on the back end, as well as a lot of the high-level thought leadership. So platform strategy, i.e. 1P versus 3P or a hybrid approach, pricing strategy, channel management, new and beta programs, key relationships, negotiations, et cetera. So at the end of the day, we really want to do everything possible to ensure that our clients are maximizing the top line potential on the platform while protecting any bottom line downside potential impacts, really on an ongoing basis. So week in and week out, year in and year out. That's pretty much what we do in a nutshell. We have about 50 people on staff. We're here in Seattle. A lot of those folks are former Amazonians. We also have a lot of outside industry veterans. So a good kind of well-rounded team helping us do what we do on a daily basis.
And how many customers do you guys work with at any given time?
Yeah, so most of our clients are, in it for the long run. At least that's the goal. So it's really compounded over the years. At this point, we work with over 100 brands on the platform.
Okay. And these brands on average are about how big?
On Amazon tend to be 2 to 3 million up to 50 million and above in annual sales.
But that's just their sales on the Amazon channel. Yes. They could be doing substantially more in brick and mortar or wherever else.
For sure. Yeah. Some of them, I would say in terms of company size, we work with kind of a lot of mid-market size companies. So probably total revenue, 20 to 500 million. And then we also work with a fair amount of the enterprise, $1 billion plus publicly traded big CPG.
Okay. And how do these brands pay you? Like, what does an agreement look like? Is it a share of revenue, share of profits, a flat fee per month?
Yeah, typically it's a combination. So typically it's some sort of monthly fee plus some sort of growth-based incentive, and it just kind of depends on specifically what we're doing for them and kind of where they are in the life cycle of Amazon. So.
Okay. So let's go in the Wayback Machine a little bit. 10 years ago when you founded it, how did you attract or how did you pursue and land clients back then? And how's that compare to how it's done now?
Yeah. So back then it was quite a bit more simple. I mean, what we were basically doing, actually it was about 12 years ago, is we were basically listing products on Amazon. That was the service we offered, is we would basically get an account set up. We would set up their items. And then we would do some basic marketing that was really available and build out some basic content. That was pretty much it back then. I mean, that was really all you could do to drive a business on the platform. It was all about just getting on there. So we would basically reach out to brands and say, you're not on Amazon. Do you want to be on Amazon? Mm-hmm. And it's weird talking about this now because it seems so obvious, but back then, I mean, big brands that, have $80 million businesses now would say, oh yeah, I guess like, Amazon, maybe they sell books and maybe some electronics, but sure, we'll try it, So we would set them up on Amazon. And then over time, as Amazon got more complicated, our business moved from getting brands on Amazon to helping brands succeed on Amazon. I mean, now there's, as you know, very, very few brands that aren't on Amazon. So when brands reach out to us, it's typically to say, hey, we have a $20 million business. It's growing at 20%. We want to grow it at 50%. We know that we need to get to the next level. How do we do that? So,
okay.
And that evolution has really been iterative over the last decade.
And I think in our pre-interview, you told me that content plays a big role in your lead generation now. Content, and I would imagine SEO, because the two kind of go hand in hand. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So how do you determine what type of content you should create?
So just to clarify, so content meaning content that we're creating in terms of thought leadership for the market, right?
Correct. Blog posts,
cool.
blog content, video, podcast, whatever type of content, but yes, thought leadership content.
Yeah, for sure. So, it's probably our content strategy is a lot more kind of art than science right now. So I think, I have a ton of conversations. Other folks on our team have a ton of conversations with existing clients and a lot of other brands out in the marketplace. And I think what we really try to do is kind of find out what's in the zeitgeist. What are people really interested in? What's the next thing? What are people talking about? Because we can do the, Amazon search 5 things to succeed blog article. And that's fine. And we do stuff like that, but it's pretty crowded at this point. I mean, those terms have been won already. So what we're really trying to do is provide real sort of incremental thought leadership. And we've found that, a good format for that is kind of longer written articles, and then honestly stuff like this. So video, audio, we do a lot of like live calls, in-person meetings, that type of thing. More conversational, because I think that's really when you can get to the what's the latest, greatest development on Amazon, because a lot of the people we're talking to, like, they're pros. It's not like they don't need the 101 stuff. They're good. They understand it. They need what is the cutting edge thing that's going to get them to the next level. So that's really kind of our lane and where we try to focus.
And are you saying that those pros are finding you guys because at the top of your funnel, you're producing the type of content you just described, or are you running ads and are you retargeting them, or is it email outreach? Like, how are you getting on their radar screen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination. But I think it's the foundation is the thought leadership content, because I think, showing them an ad is, of course, awareness is always an important part of a content strategy, but if there's nothing behind that, it's fairly meaningless.
Yep.
What's interesting is this Amazon agency space has gotten quite crowded over the last couple of years. So, I mean, there's a lot of companies, talking about a lot of different things. It's noisy out there. So, we find that kind of that high level is the way that we break through.
And have you found that, do you have one niche, one product category that tends to be where you get most of your big wins, or are you pretty much evenly across all categories?
Yeah, we're pretty evenly spread. So, I mean, we literally have brands in, I think, pretty much every category and subcategory at this point on the platform. Maybe there's a couple that we don't have, but our focus in a way is narrow, because we just focus on one platform, one retailer, Amazon. So we didn't want to go even more narrow than that. So we're only going to do consumer electronics on Amazon. I mean, and I know this, that 95% of what you're doing is the same, whether you're selling headphones or running shoes or protein powder. There is a 5% that's different by category that's important, but it's much more about knowing the platform in intimate detail than it is about that specific category. So we use that to our advantage.
What's your sales process look like? A lead comes into the top of your funnel. They've encountered a piece of your content somewhere, and presumably there's some type of call to action on your blog. Download an ebook or register for a webinar or something. What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's pretty customized. I mean, it's really it's how do I say it? It's really human driven, I guess. So we don't have a real like automated sales funnel in the sense that a lot of companies do. Like, if you're a SaaS company and you have to have thousands of customers coming in a month, it's a very different strategy. For us, we have a really good sales team. All of them have managed Amazon businesses. So they really know what they're talking about. They're not like just salespeople trying to convert folks. So they can really talk in intimate detail about the business. It's really consultative. We do a lot of audits, custom proposals, that type of thing. I mean, sometimes, frankly, people just say, yeah, I like what I hear after an hour and send me a contract, and, that's great. And then sometimes there's, 3, 4, 5 conversations, in-person meetings, depending on if there's a formal RFP or not. So it's always customized. I mean, almost always.
Do you find that you are competing against other firms for most every deal that you win, or occasionally is it a sole source?
It's occasionally, they're reaching out, especially if it's a referral. Then they're just saying, hey, I heard you guys are good. Like, let's talk. And that's, those are the easier ones, obviously. But yeah, I mean, we have competitors. There's some good companies in our space. So, oftentimes these brands are talking to multiple agencies. So,
okay. And what's your top line revenue these days? What's the range?
It's 8 figures.
8 figures. Okay. What is as the leader of an 8-figure company, what is the hardest part of your job?
That's a good question. I think.
Well, I hope I hit a good question eventually.
Man, there's so many ways I could answer that. I'm trying to think of like one single kind of macro answer. I think it's prioritization. I mean, I think there's 1,000 things I could drill down in and focus on. So I think for someone I've done pretty much every function of the company, because when we started, we had, I think, 2 or 3 people. So I was doing what the account managers do now. And then, I've kind of obviously changed my role over time. So I think one thing is making sure that you don't, as a CEO, dive into the weeds too much, that you don't micromanage, that you don't, do stuff that really you shouldn't be doing, that you have people to do. But then kind of conversely, making sure that you're still paying attention and that you're in the details enough to know what's going on. So I think that balancing act is probably one of the hardest things. And then within that kind of prioritization, making sure you're empowering people. It's so easy to just say, I know how to do this. Like, I'll just do it. I think that's a constant struggle. And, as soon as when you get to 10 people, okay, there's stuff I can't do anymore. When you get to 30 people, okay, now there's new stuff I can't do anymore. Same with 50. So it's really, making sure you're building leaders to kind of execute all of the functions of the company. I mean, once you get to the point where you have 50 people, you're basically just having conversations with your other leaders. I mean, that's basically like my job. And doing some stuff like this. But that's really now, like, that's a full-time job. So, yeah.
How much of a role do documented business processes play in your company? Some companies, for example, hire ridiculously talented people and they say, hey, you know how to do everything, just go do it. The other end of the spectrum is we have, like in my organization, we have a documented process for absolutely everything that we do. So no matter who we hire, we say, this is the process. It's all documented. It's in our software. Follow that process to a T. If you can improve it, great. Let's talk about ways to improve it. But we have documented processes for everything. Is it like that in your shop?
I think it's somewhere in the middle. So I think we do hire people that we expect to basically be able to kind of stand on their own from day one. But then we hope to improve what they're doing, make it more efficient, make it more effective through our internal process. So we're not so process driven that we could just hire like a random smart person and have them do what we do. They do need to have, in almost all cases, domain expertise, and those are the folks that we hire. But then, no one's going to have kind of the perfect set of skills or answers the way we would do things. So we do have processes for that. And I think as we've grown, we've become more process oriented. I mean, when we were probably at like 10 or 15 people, it was the kind of the former way you described it, like just hire smart people, they'll figure it out. And that actually worked pretty well. But at some point, I think because management is more disconnected, you now have multiple layers of management, it's harder for that to function without it just creating chaos. So I think as we've gotten bigger, we've become more process oriented, and it sounds kind of cheesy, but there's a Seth Godin book, and he has this concept of creating art in business. And basically that if you want to create value, you have to create art. He doesn't mean that literally, it's a metaphor, but that, the opposite of that is a factory. So we never want to be a factory, because a factory is just trying to do something the cheapest at the lowest level. And if you're an agency and you're a factory, you're not going to be around very long. So you have to be creating real value that kind of lives at the highest levels of your domain. And I think that's how you stay around. That's how you stay innovative. That's how you, stay new and fresh, and those things that brands expect out of an agency, because otherwise they just do it themselves. So,
and the processes that you have, where do they live? Do they live in a Google Doc? Do they live in a software app? Are they templates in like an Asana?
Yeah, mostly Evernote. So we use Evernote's business version, and I'm a huge fan of Evernote. I've always been kind of a power user in my personal life of Evernote. I've had it forever, no pun intended. But they opened up a couple of years ago a collaborative version where it's kind of like Google Docs. You can collaborate on the same document. Everyone accesses the same stuff, and that's been basically, it's an internal wiki. That's what it functions as. And I mean, I think at this point we have thousands of notes in there, and it's super searchable. So someone new comes in and has one really specific business process. Instead of having to pull out a training manual, virtual or otherwise, they can just search, and then it'll just show any relevant content. And it's pretty quick and efficient. So.
Okay. So suffice to say, the people who are on your team, those 50 people, that is the intellectual property of your organization. Let's close out with this. How do you find and attract and ultimately hire such talented people with the domain expertise that you need?
Yeah, it's a combination. So we sometimes use recruiters. We also do internal recruiting. We use existing staff referrals a lot. Smart people tend to know other smart people, especially in our little kind of, tight-knit Seattle Amazon world. There's really only, sometimes we say, okay, we need to hire this position. And we say, there's probably 500 humans in North America that fit our profile. Like not even people looking for jobs, just actual people. So it's pretty specific sometimes in terms of the folks we're looking for. So it can take a while. It's not easy. I mean, we're hiring people that could work anywhere. So it's like a lot of things we do, it's kind of heavily customized depending on the role. But we found that internal referrals are pretty effective.
Does everyone, and I guess I'm telling a lie now because I'm asking one final question.
Yeah.
Does everyone show up to the headquarters every day, or are you a remote team with people that could be anywhere and just working remotely?
So we have kind of an interesting model. So everyone's in the city of Seattle. We do have a centralized office, but then everyone has the option to go into work or to work from home, depending just on the needs. Obviously if they have a client meeting, if they have a meeting at Amazon, they need to be in the office. We do occasionally have all hands meetings where everyone's required to come in, but otherwise people can work from home. They can work in the office. And what's interesting is it runs the gamut. I mean, some people work from home every day. Some people come into the office just on their own almost every day because they just kind of like that environment. So our philosophy basically is hire adults and then treat them like adults. So, if we're trusting people with multi-million-dollar businesses, we should trust them to get their work done at home or come into the office.
Absolutely.
So that's the philosophy.
Okay. And rattle off your company URL, and just on the off chance there's someone listening to this episode that would like to maybe work for you or hire your company.
Yeah, for sure. So it's OrcaPac, ORCAPAC.com.
All right. John, thank you so much for making some time to be on the show.
Thanks so much. Good talking.